Even after we had first gotten married, I didn't remember being as physically sore as I was now. We'd only been apart for 2 weeks, but it was clear that Hieronymus missed me. When he went to shower, I had cast spirit echoes around the room and watched how he spent most of his time sitting at his desk reading. Every now and then, he would sigh and put his book down and stare at the bed where I was so often reading or working. The scowl etched into his lips seemed so permanent, and I almost couldn't believe that he had really missed me as much as he did. "Oh, by the way, I have breakfast for us," I say as Hieronymus returns from a shower. "You probably wouldn't like Virginia's mom very much, but her cooking is amazing. I can see where Virginia gets her passion for eating from." "We'll see," Hieronymus says as he joins me at the table. "It would be discourteous of me not to ask how your time was there." "If you don't want to know, I don't have to tell you," I say with a silly grin. "I don't want to bore you or anything." Hieronymus lets out a sigh as he shakes his head. "You won't bore me, Tori. As much as I may not be interested in your activities, I am interested in what you did and how you felt about it." I can't help but giggle. "Okay then. We mostly did basic teenage stuff. We went to a playground by our house and hung out there. The park that it's in is really big and super pretty. It's a lot nicer than the trails here. The woods are different, like the trees are skinnier and placed further apart. We also went to the mall. It's like 3 times the size of the mall here, but there's no magic shops or anything. We went to the food court and Virginia ordered something from every single place. I got so stuffed, but then Donald used green magic to help us all feel better so we could still eat dinner that night." "Riveting," Hieronymus says dryly as he rolls his eyes. "How did the party go your first night? Did you have to fend off any dreadful questions about us?" My eyes dip down as I recall the conversation that I had with Aloysius. Although I still doubted that his motives were sincere, all I had done was tell him that I would bring up the option of going to England after I graduated. I didn't know if that was what I wanted now, but maybe that was something that I would want a few years down the line. "Tori?" I blink and look up at him. Hieronymus looks concerned, and I quickly give him my best childish grin as I shake my head from side to side. "Sorry, it's nothing. Yeah, there were some weird questions, but it's nothing I couldn't handle." Hieronymus narrows his eyes at me. "Tori, I know when you're not telling me the whole truth. What's wrong?" "Nothing," I say, but I bite my lip as I glance around the room. I have to ask you something, but I don't know if it's safe to do it here." "Safe?" Hieronymus asks as he arches an eyebrow. He looks concerned, and for a moment I do just about anything to get him to stop looking at me like that. "It's about..." I stop and mouth the word Potsdam at him. Hieronymus just sighs and shakes his head. "It's private in here, you know that," he reminds me. "She can't hear us in here, Tori." I don't know if I entirely believe that, but the longer I dragged out this conversation, the more suspicious it would seem if she was eavesdropping. "A lot of the parents don't like her. At least, I think they were parents. But I don't know who they were. They were all adults. But they wanted her out." "That's no secret," Hieronymus says as he snorts and shakes his head. "There are many who don't agree with Potsdam's approach, especially with the way she handles wild seeds." I pause for a moment as I think back to a conversation I had with Minnie our first year. As class president, she wanted to organize a student assembly and share a lot of magical need-to-know information, especially on the importance of not revealing our magic and other things we had to do in order to avoid getting our magic taken from us. Professor Potsdam was absolutely adamant that if they had questions, we could answer them, but we were expressly prohibited from explaining how magical rules worked to them. As a result, many wild seeds ended up not returning to Iris after Christmas break, mostly because they broke the rules that they didn't even know existed. "I know at least a little something about that," I offer. "And That I can understand, but I was surprised to hear that they wanted you to take her place. Me? Hieronymous asks as he raises his eyebrows, and I nod my head forward. What would give them that impression? I have no idea, I say honestly. Maybe it's because you do so much around the school. Like, you host detention, you handle classes on every year level, you never leave, and you didn't have any family of your own. My voice trails off as something comes back at me. But Potsdam does have a family, doesn't she? The corner of Hieronymus's mouth twitches in a way that I had never seen before. When Potsdam told you about Violet, she shared something very personal about me, knowing that I would not consent to that information being shared, Hieronymus says quietly. So So I'm going to tell you something now, Tori, that is tit for tat. But it must not be repeated to anyone under any circumstances. Do you understand, Tori? I agree, but I'm not swearing anything, I say, choosing my words carefully. Hieronymus looks like he's going to chide me for it, but he lets it go. Petunia used to be married, he explains. She grew up in the magical community and married someone in the magical community. She never took to wild seeds, but that's besides the point, and I doubt her rise to headmaster is the part of the story that you're most interested in anyway. A few years ago, her husband was doing business in the other world when he came across a succubus. He was enthralled by her, and he broke his vows for her. I don't think I need to tell you what happened next. I stare at him. If he broke his vows, it meant that his memories were taken from him, and he was expelled from the magical community. He would never remember his parents, his family, his wife, or his prior magical abilities. What happened to him? He's a real estate broker now, I believe, Hieronymus replies. Has a new wife. Kids, even. Petunia checks on him from time to time. I know she does. It eats her alive to see him live out their future with someone else. I put my breakfast down. I wasn't hungry. Somehow I doubted that I would ever be able to feel hungry ever again. I don't feel like crying, but a creeping sense of numbness has worked its way into my core. Tori. Hieronymus' voice is exasperated, as if he was frustrated by my reaction. It's a sad story, but don't let it get to you. That's like literally my worst fear, I tell him quietly. Like really, my worst fear. I don't elaborate, and Hieronymus doesn't press me as he surveys me quietly. I wasn't sure what bothered me more, watching Hieronymus live out his future with someone else, or me losing my memories and my sense of identity and being remade into someone else. Both options were just about as bad as I could ever imagine. Anyway, I say quietly as I look back up at him, you don't want to be headmaster, do you? No, Hieronymus says with a laugh. No, Tori, I don't. What about going back to Europe, I ask, and being Viscount? Have you given that any more thought? No, I haven't, Hieronymus says as he shakes his head. I'm not going to decide anything until we reach your senior year so that you can make up your mind about where you want to go first, Tori. We have enough money to settle down anywhere you want to go, and you can pursue anything you want to. I just shrug, trying my very best to appear nonchalant. England might not be so bad. I don't honestly know about being a Viscount or what that would entail to know how to feel about it, but living in England could be cool, and there's plenty of places to pursue my education there. And it means we'd be closer to Daniel. His mom really wants me to come visit him. I'm sure, Hieronymus says as he rolls his eyes. You got a letter from her while you were away. I saw what you told her, that flowers are just the stars of the earth. Where on earth did you get that from? It's just something that came to me, I say, unable to conceal my blush. Like, we just sit here and I look up at the sky and see stars, right? But if someone was looking down at Earth from the sky and they saw all these flowers, they probably would see them the same way we see stars. Right? I can see the way Hieronymous is looking at me, and I quickly blush scarlet. Shut up. You are endlessly fascinating, Hieronymous says with a light chuckle. The way you see the world, Tori. Sometimes I can't help but wish that I had the same sense of wonder you have. It's my youthful wisdom, I say teasingly, and considering how much you know about the world, you're the perfect person to tame my creativity with responsibility. Now it's Hieronymous's turn to flush. Yes, well, who would have thought that we'd be the perfect couple? Pretty much no one, I say happily, but that doesn't bother me at all. No one knows me the way you do, and no one knows you as well as I do. I think. It's true, Hieronymous says with a light chuckle. Honestly, Tori, the more time I spend with you, the more I feel comfortable admitting that I'm okay not knowing what the future holds. I used to want to know everything, to protect myself, to protect you, but you don't seem to carry the same fears I do. No, I do, I venture softly. I just don't let them stop me. Going into the other world without you would have been risky, but apparently so is crossing this campus. There's no way to protect ourselves from absolutely all of the danger that's out there. So I just want to make the most of the time I get to spend with you, right here, right now. Even if something does happen to us in the future, at least we had this. And at least we could say that we made the most of it. Hieronymous just chuckles as he grins at me. Oh, you do remember how much I love your speeches. I grin back at him. Maybe one day my epic speech-making abilities will rub off on you. Maybe on the very last day of class as a senior, at the May Day ball, you'll have an epic speech in front of the whole graduating class where you proclaim your love for me. Hieronymous just shakes his head. If there is one thing I've learned from being married to you, Mrs. Grabiner, it's never say never, especially as far as you're concerned. I can't help but laugh openly at this. So that's not a no? Hieronymous just smirks at me, and I like the mischievous glint in his eye. We'll see.